All right. So, what you are seeing here is going to be the outline for the Huck Finn essay. So, while you are writing your essay, I would have this up and just kind of make sure that you're not following along 100%, but this is more of a guide. And so you just kind of know if you're doing it right, if you're not doing it right, those kind of things, okay? So, just a reminder here, the essay question is, if Jim represents African Americans in the South during this time, who could Tom Sawyer be representing and who could Huck Finn be representing? So make sure that in your essay you're covering both Tom and you're covering Huck as well, okay? So now, with your introduction, let's come down here to the introduction, okay? As you notice right here, it says to write the thesis statement first. And here is why. Everything else that you write, from your attention getter, from your arguments to your conclusion, everything ties back to that thesis statement. And if you don't have a solid thesis statement, then you're not going to have a solid essay. You're not going to have a solid piece of writing that you can get behind. Can it change? Absolutely. If you're typing and typing and typing, and you realize that you want to say something different for this essay, I don't see that being the case. You can always change it and go back and make sure that everything matches up, okay? So, with that being said, a way to do your thesis statement is to come up to the question and change it into a statement. One thing to maybe add to this is the name of the book and the author. But I mean, you could just do that as your question, because that's where the start of the question is. Who could Tom Sawyer be representing and who could Huck Finn be representing? So you could say something like, in the last 10 chapters of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, it is evident that Tom Sawyer is representing blah, 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 and Huck Finn is representing blah, blah, blah. It's a very simple thesis statement, but it's going to work for this, okay? I think a lot of kids get into this mindset of, a thesis statement has to have 3 things in it. Huck Finn represents this because of reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. You don't have to do that, okay? And this one lets you be a little more generalized, so that way you can have as many arguments within it that you want. And that's key, because maybe you have 2 for Tom Sawyer and 1 for Huck Finn. Maybe you got 2 and 2, maybe you got 1 and 1. It just kind of depends on how you're writing it and what you have come up with, okay? So I would write the thesis statement first, and then I would not do the attention getter and stuff like that until later on. I think this is probably the hardest part of writing an essay. And so I would try to get down all your ideas first, all your arguments first, and then come back up and do that, because that can be changed, that can be done. That's not the main part of your essay that I am looking for anyway. I'm looking for the arguments, I'm looking for your quotes, I'm looking for your explanation, okay? So I would start with the thesis first, and then I would move on to the next argument down below, okay? So this is for each of your body paragraphs. This is not just for argument 1. It's for all your body paragraphs, okay? Also, this is going to be way more than 5 sentences. I think you guys are under the assumption that, a paragraph is 5 sentences. No. A paragraph is way more than that. And it should be more than that. And they should be complex, compound sentences. And they should have quotes, and it should explain, and it should do all those kind of things, okay? So your paragraphs are going to be a little bit bigger. That's okay. It's okay to have a big paragraph. As long as it's all one idea, it's okay. So you're going to take the thesis statement and you're going to break it down into one specific argument, okay? So in this case, it's either going to be about Tom or it's going to be about Huck. And so you would say that Tom Sawyer represents blah, blah, blah because, and then give me your reason why. And now you're going to explain that reasoning here in the rest of the paragraph. So, again, just make sure that one topic sentence covers just that one paragraph. I always look for that when I'm reading your papers is, Okay, he or she says that they're going to talk about this one argument, and as I read it, go, oh, they're going off into a different territory. So make sure you compartmentalize each of your arguments, okay? Now, this part, you're going to start with either the article or the novel. As I was starting this, I thought like, oh, everyone would start with the article from Fishkin and then go to the actual novel. But as I thought about it, I was like, you could start with the novel and then go to the Fishkins. It just kind of depends on how you want to write it. And so if you're going to write it in a way of going from the article, the PDF that you have, to Huck Finn, then you would talk about during the time period, and then talk about, we see that Tom does the same things to Jim, or that Huck does the same things to Jim, and then you go that way. Or you can start with Tom and Huck and go, this is what Tom did to Jim. This is very similar to what was going on in the time period, and then talk that way. So it doesn't matter which way you go; both will be equally correct. It'll just be on how you transition from the book to the article, or from the article to the book, will be different. Okay. And I would say one of the things to do here is try. I would rather you try and let me give you some feedback than go, I can't do it, and then not do it. Okay? There is no hurt in trying if you're putting in your best effort, because I can help you out with that then. Okay? Either way, though, you start with the background of the section that you are going to be quoting and talking about. So you want again, everything is there to set up your quotes. Everything is there to set up the sections of the book or of the PDF that you are trying to make sense for the reader. Okay? So for example, if I'm going to talk about Jim representing all African Americans, I might need to explain some things that happened before about him running away back in chapter 8. I might need to explain that he was captured by the king and the duke and sold in chapter 30 in order for a quote in chapter 34 to make sense. And it's not a lot. It's not a lot of background. It's enough background to give me context, but not everything where a summary overtakes your whole entire paragraph. Okay? Make it straight to the point. Make it short. Make it just make it small. Make it like as much as it needs to be, and nothing more, nothing less, kind of a deal. Okay? Same with the article. If you're going to talk about something that takes place in a time period of like 1877, this says 67, 77, you might need to explain what happened before that first. And again, just a little bit of context, a little bit of summary, not a whole lot, like a couple sentences, if that. Okay. Then you compare that part to the other article. So if you're going to explain how Huck was doing this is similar to what was going on in this time period, and then describe that, or vice versa. Okay. So basically, these two things are very similar. You're taking one and then you're transitioning to the other one, and you're comparing it to the time period, or you're comparing it to the book, whichever way you go. Okay. Now, there's 3 eyes. This is where a lot of kids fail to get their point across. Okay, because you can have your quotes, you can have your stuff like that, and it's all great, but you need to explain it. You need to put it into your own words on why that makes Tom represent that group of people, that makes Huck represent that group of people. You can't just say, well, clearly it shows. It doesn't. Okay? You might think it does because it's your idea. But to a person who's not in your head, it's not going to make sense. Okay? So please, 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 this is probably the most important part here. Okay? Is this 3 eyes. Set it up, explain it a little bit more, and then you transition to the next paragraph. Okay? And this could be the same character or this could be a new character. Now, when you transition in a body paragraph, you do two things. One, you summarize your current paragraph. So not only does Tom represent this because of this reason, but, and then two, you introduce the new topic. But Huck could also represent this group of people. And then talk about that. Okay? So you're going to do that for all of your body paragraphs. You might have 2, you might have 3, you might have 4. It depends on how you're writing it, okay? I can't give a blanket statement of like, oh, you're doing 3 paragraphs. I don't like that. I don't like those concrete kind of details because then that limits to what you can and cannot do. As long as you're covering both Tom and Huck and you're covering in a way that makes sense, I'm not going to be too picky on how many paragraphs you have. If you can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt in your own words, okay? The last body paragraph will not have the transition. It'll just summarize the current paragraph, okay? Down here in the conclusion, this one's going to be a little bit different as well. In your conclusion, what you're going to do is you are going to restate your thesis statement in a new way by kind of mixing up the order of the sentence. So, for example, if you're going to talk about in the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Tom represents this and Huck represents this, instead you would say Tom represents this and Huck represents this in the book Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. So you just kind of, usually you restate your reasons and flip it around. Just do that just a little bit here. You then summarize each of your own arguments, okay? So Tom represents this because of blah, 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 blah. Bring out some of your key details, your key arguments again, and then do the same for Huck. And then tie the idea into something bigger, like today's world. I think this part down here is always the question of who cares? Great, you wrote this essay. Who cares? Why should we care? I would argue that history is super important, and the idea of what's going on during this time period could still be happening today. Talk about that, okay? I think that's a very key thing to do here. The essay. I'm going to say right now that the essay is due next Friday, okay? November 13th. Let's see where we're getting with it. Let's see what's going on with what's going to be happening next week. But that's kind of my thoughts right now. Is next Friday the 13th, okay? So what I would do is I would start getting my arguments kind of ready to go, finding quotes to help back it up, kind of having those on the ready, and then writing your thesis statement and then going from there, okay? If you have any questions, reach out to me. My office hours are today from 10 to 11 and 1:30 to 2:30. So, all right, thanks.